rhetoric matched with action tonight.
Yes, it will be a tough budget. It will be a tough budget. We will get the budget back into surplus in 2012-13, as we indicated before, as the economy begins to expand again after the series of natural disasters that have affected revenue.
You already had
right
$40 billion of deficit
have
before
affected revenue right now.
disasters.
We will get the budget back into surplus in 2012-13. We've also committed, Kieran, as part of that, to limit spending growth to no more than 2% in real terms. So these are the disciplines that need to be applied as the economy gains momentum, gains strength.
Is the opposition happy to have a debate about this broader agenda, about workforce, about health? Because this morning, Tony Abbott, your opposition leader, has showed up at the doors of Parliament. The first thing he talks about on Budget Day is the asylum seeker deal with Malaysia. Where is the credibility on economic matters if on Budget Day your leader shows up and talks about asylum seekers as his first issue?
Well, the reason why that was done is because overnight we've heard that what started out as a 2-for-1 deal has become a 5-for-1 farce in terms of the exchange. I think you better read the facts on this. A 5-for-1 farce with Malaysia, with a massive blowout in costs.
Doesn't it show the opposition leader just wants to narrow the debate about asylum seekers and carbon, that's it?
No, the second thing is, in terms of budget, we are very happy to have a debate which says 9 consecutive ALP budget deficits in a row, 2 consecutive $50 billion deficits in a row. We have a massive blowout in borders, in our costs on home insulation, in our costs on building, and now the set-top box scandal is said to be pink bats for pensioners.
Okay, well, let's get your response to that. And I also want to get your response to this story about that Mr Hunt referred to in relation to the deal with Malaysia, where they look like they've got the deal they want, not necessarily what our officials wanted previously. But first of all, the set-top box. Is this going to be a rort? The Daily Telegraph this morning says that this is a new public waste scandal looming after $400 a time has been allocated to install digital TV.
38,000 pensioners and veterans and other Australians have already been assisted to get set-top boxes. So where is the big story here about how this is being rorted? 38,000. Now, let the coalition oppose giving assistance to aged pensioners to move from analogue to digital by the installation of set-top boxes. It wouldn't be the first time the coalition has said one thing and done another, like saying that there should be an increase in the age pension, never doing it. As soon as they get into opposition, they say the government ought to do it. They're the greatest gunners of all time. They're going to do all of these things. Now, in relation to asylum seekers, we have struck a deal with Malaysia. It is a very important deal because it means that over 4 years there will be 4,000 not asylum seekers, but actual refugees in Malaysia coming to Australia, and in exchange for that, 800 asylum seekers who think that they might be able to get to Australia will be going to Malaysia. And I'll point out
Peter Hartcher and Phil Curry in the Herald today, in the Sydney Morning Herald, are reporting that initially it was going to be a 2-for-1 deal. A 2-for-1 deal. Now it ends up being what? 5-for-1.
Well, the deal is what has been. The deal is what has been announced, and I actually think that.
No, but has the government been dudded? It says Malaysia's outgunned Australia.
That's their story. We are quite content. We are quite content
to take any deal you could get.
No, we are quite content with the deal that is there. Now, again, let Greg Hunt, let the coalition say that they are opposed to 1,000 mainly Burmese refugees coming to Australia. You see, they have every possible position. Scott Morrison said that under the coalition there would be an increase in the humanitarian intake. When we increase the humanitarian intake, predominantly Burmese, what does Greg Hunt do? What does Tony Abbott do? What they always do, oppose it.
There's a simple solution. Pick up the phone to the President of Nauru, who is willing immediately to reopen the centre there, to do this without
Is there hypocrisy there? Is there hypocrisy there? Because you did say before, in the context of the budget, where there's positive or positive developments as far as you see it, you welcome it. It seems on asylum seekers that rule does not apply.
This is not a good deal for Australia.
The government did say
we're coming to Australia.
This is not a good deal. It started out at 2-for-1. It's ended up at 5-for-1, and it's not going to stop the boats. It's a temporary solution. And most significantly, what you see is that Malaysia looks at the Australian Prime Minister, they see a diminished figure, and Malaysia says, She is the Alan Bond of international relations. You get one deal like this in a lifetime.
Who would argue with this, that there is repression in Burma? Who would say that Aung San Suu Kyi isn't barracking and championing on behalf of oppressed people in Burma?
Were there concerns in the caucus about this, though? The fact that if you look at the humanitarian side of this... Yes,
refugees, and they are opposed to them coming to Australia.
In terms of the humanitarian, in terms of the humanitarian aspect of this, in the caucus, were there concerns that you're shunting a group of people to the back of the queue in Malaysia where human rights abuses have been noted over many years?
I'm constrained about discussing what actually happened in caucus, but I can tell you about the general atmosphere. There was very little discussion about this in the full caucus. Whether there were discussions with individual ministers beforehand or whatever, quite possibly. There was very little discussion about it in the caucus, and you've seen the newspaper reports on the caucus saying the caucus accepted the proposition that was put to them.
The Prime Minister told the caucus, apparently, Greg Hunt, that, and this is something that obviously Tony Abbott is working for Tony Abbott, that he's narrowed the debate on carbon price and on asylum seekers, the political debate. That's what he's been driving. The roadshow around Australia on the carbon price and on asylum seekers. Is this going to be the modus operandi for the foreseeable future, or is Tony Abbott going to broaden the debate at all?
No, there are two parts to this. One is holding the government to account on the massive failures on border protection and the carbon tax. Just yesterday we saw the CEO of Incitec Pivot and the chairman of BHP again criticise the government's approach on this and say that it's got it wrong. Secondly, at the same time, Tony is also working on a very constructive agenda for Australia in terms of a better way: mental health, Indigenous health, welfare to work, financial reform. This is both a leader of the opposition and an alternative Prime Minister.
Here's a great opportunity. Thursday night, the opposition leader delivers his budget reply. During last week, the Shadow Treasurer said that the Coalition would have the budget back into surplus in 2011-12. Here's the opportunity for Tony Abbott to spell out how he's going to get the budget back into surplus in 2011-12 and beyond. And I'm saying beyond the rubbish $50 billion figures that Joe Hockey's been talking about, which includes not proceeding with small business tax breaks funded by the mining tax, not proceeding with the company tax, not proceeding in superannuation, but forgetting that they don't get the revenue out of the tax.
Okay, well, let's ask Greg Hunt. Was that a legitimate commitment, or is this the government just trying to beat this up? Is this a commitment that the Coalition would actually see that as viable, a return to surplus a year earlier?
Well, if we had been in government, I believe we would have delivered it. I don't have any doubt about that.
Another gunner.
The next thing, though, is our record compares with the government's. 10 of our last 11 budgets were surplus budgets. 9 out of 9 of the last ALP budgets have been massive deficit budgets. That's the history that Australia is facing at the moment. Surpluses versus deficits, and tonight there will be no carbon tax in the budget, and there will be therefore a $35 to $40 billion revenue shortfall.
Let me make this point about no carbon tax in the budget. In May 1997, John Howard announced a GST. It was not in the next budget. It was not in the next budget. In mid-2007, John Howard announced an emissions trading scheme. It was not in the budget updates. Hypocrisy. Thy name is Liberal.
Is that a fair comparison that Craig Emerson's making with the GST? It wasn't included until the details were finalised. So surely,
with respect, there is a great difference, and the difference is this: that this tax is proposed to start just over a year from now. Just over a year from now, not some multiples of years later. Right now, it's a critical element. It should be in the budget. It's being withheld from the budget because it would destroy their promises on both revenue and expenditure.
And I suppose the other difference is, Craig Emerson, that Mr Howard went to the election in '98 with the GST.
And spelled out the details, but didn't put it in the budget.
But took it to the people.
Yeah, didn't put it in the budget.
You're not taking this carbon tax to the people.
What we're talking about is whether it's in the budget or not. Now, the Coalition's made a big deal about that carbon tax, which starts on 1 July 2012, right? After the next budget. So why would you put it in this budget when we're still
they're
working through the details, when the coalition didn't on either the ETS and the GST?
Well, we're going to wrap up our discussion now, gents. Thank you very much for that on Budget Day. We can see some pictures there of Treasurer Wayne Swan approaching the ministerial door of Parliament House here in Canberra. Thank you very much.
Go Swanee.
Have a good day. It should be an interesting week, Greg Hunt. Craig Emerson, thank you very much for that. Let's cross now to the full picture there of Treasurer Swan. A big day for him. His fourth budget. He says it's his most complex, with a couple of competing trends in the economy, with the short-term softness of the GFC and the natural disasters, and the longer-term stronger investment in the resources sector. Let's cross now to Treasurer Swan on the day of his
good morning,
fourth budget.
everyone. Just wanted to